Welcome back to the channel. Doing a video today, not technically a podcast, but as a board-certified obesity medicine physician, I was very interested when Greg Doucette posted a video, Let's Tax the Fat People.
Yeah, I'm very excited to react to this one. I'm a tax enthusiast, so let's see what he has to say.
This is absolutely ridiculous!
Solid hook.
Coach Greg, in today's video, there's a country that actually taxes the people for being fat. And I'm not making this shit up, and it's been going on for several years. You probably didn't know this. I certainly did. So we're going to talk about, does this make sense? Does it actually work? And should they do it in North America?
This country taxes people for being too fat, and the results are actually quite shocking. So this country introduced a fat tax that forced every business to take mandatory waist measurements of their employees every year.
And so first things first, they're going to tax the employer as if.
This is interesting. Reaction to a reaction video. So I guess he's also reacting to someone.
This is like 3 layers of inception here.
Yeah, it's some inception. Somewhat controversial. They introduced a fat tax, apparently a business tax, to take mandatory waist measurements of its employees every year. So probably don't want to have GH gut, even if you're lean. If the employee does not make any improvements, the business would be fined. More taxes on businesses. That sounds like what we need.
Sounds like if this happened in North America, people would be fudging some numbers. Like, oh, that's a nice 32-inch waist you've got there, John.
Yeah.
The boss of the employees for them being fat. How is it my responsibility? If you're a boss and you have workers and they decide to eat too many cheeseburgers, then why am I being the one that's held accountable? And so to me, that doesn't make sense. You want to tax the people.
I would agree with this. Maybe we could turn this up to 2 times or 1.5 times speed too.
Good thought.
But that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you don't want to be held. You don't want to be hiring your employees for their waist measurement. If that's the metric they go by, you want to hire them by merit. Then, that's that.
Yeah, just because you have a small waist doesn't mean you're good at your job.
Who are overweight and obese, well, let's talk about that. But why are we taxing the employer?
The limits were 33.5 inches for men and 35.4 inches for women.
Next, these numbers make absolutely no sense. Where do they come up with these? Men have to have a waist below 33.5 inches. And women, we're going to let them have a waist size of 35.4 inches. How does that make sense? Why is it that women who are shorter, smaller, and lighter allowed to have a bigger belly than men? That to me is ridiculous. And use your logic, your thinking caps. Is it not more normal for a man to have a larger waist than a woman? I mean, really look around. If I told you that I had a 34-inch waist, would you think that I'm fat? And so raise your hand if you think my waist is over 33.5 inches. Remember, if you're over 33.5, you're going to get an extra tax. And I, by the way, have approximately 8% body fat. Clearly, I'm not obese, but is my waist above 33.5 inches? Well, let's see. All right, I'm going to go around the belly button just to see. And 34.5 inches. And so that company would be taxed. But if I suck in my stomach, 31.5 inches. And so depending on if I'm breathing out or breathing in, it's going to give you 2 totally separate measurements.
Yeah, obviously everybody's going to suck in their stomach here.
Yeah.
It's like when you stand up trying to get your height measured, you stand up as tall as possible.
It sounds like Greg Doucette is not enjoying what he's going to have to do at his move to Japan that he's planning for. I think this is just definitely a thing he's putting out there to try and put pressure on the Japanese government to take away the law so he can live there.
I guess so. I'm not really sure what his angle is yet.
Raise your hand, think the employer is going to give an accurate waist size measurement, knowing that if it's above 33.5 inches, they're going to have to pay extra taxes. Like, really think about it. And remember this, if you're 6'6", you're very tall, and your waist is only 33.5 inches. That is a very tiny, very small waist. But if you're only 5 feet tall and your waist is 33.5 inches, then that's a lot. It's quite big. And so the taller you are, the larger the measurement should be. And on average, men are about 5 inches taller than women. And so why is it that women are allowed to have a larger waist than that of a man? Makes no sense. And imagine you walk around, start measuring people, getting the measuring tape out, body shaping goes on. Everyone at work is pointing a finger. That person had chips, beer, pizza, and so on. And so you're going to get fat shamed. The employers are not going to want to hire anyone who's overweight. Think of it. If you show up to a job interview and I see that you're 50 pounds overweight, do you really think I'm going to hire you? How is that going to be fair to the employees? There's no way you're going to hire someone if they're overweight, if you know it's going to cost you more money than somebody's underweight.
And anyone who breached these numbers was required to go to weight loss classes funded by the employer.
And so think of it. It's funded by the employer. How is it the employer's fault? Why is it my fault as the boss that my employees are not in shape? I literally have 3,000 videos.
Yeah, he's probably not taking into account that people in Japan will work 16 hours a day. So if you're at your workplace all the time and your workplace doesn't have treadmill desks or desks on bicycles or, a gym.
Vending machines full of candy.
Yeah. So, if you work a 32-hour work week, I could say, yeah, I agree. It's not really your workplace's fault at all. But if you're working 80 to 90 hour work weeks, then it probably is similar to a lot of physicians that work in the hospital, 80, 90 hours a week. What the physician's lounge is stocked with, the quality and quantity of food and the caloric density of it, that's going to make a difference, as it made a difference for me in residency.
Yeah, and the point about the male and female waist size differences, that females can actually tolerate a higher body fat percentage and more, adipose tissue, abdominal adipose tissue specifically than men. They're going to tend to get less visceral fat. So that's probably where this discrepancy comes in. Why can women have bigger waists and not be, penalized or not have their company penalized? That would be sort of my knee-jerk reaction, but I'd have to look at kind of what their analysis was that came to the conclusion of this is the metric we have.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to help the world in order how to lose weight. I have cookbooks, a circle diet book, helping people how to lose weight and keep it off for the rest of your life. But if they choose to ignore everything, they don't do 150 minutes of cardio a week, they don't eat healthy, don't lift weights, then why am I to blame? This is absolutely ridiculous.
Also, if companies couldn't reduce the number of overweight employees by certain thresholds each year, they would be subject to fines.
The companies are getting fined because their employees are eating burgers? Like, really? Like, how does any of this make sense? Why is it the companies that are in charge of this? Why don't we just blame the school teachers? Well, they go to school and any kid that's overweight, the teacher has to do burpees. Does that make sense? Think about it, people.
And while this law doesn't make obesity illegal, it can isolate you from everyone else at work.
And so it doesn't make obesity illegal, but imagine you're at work and you're the only one that's overweight. Only 4% of people in this country are overweight. Every country is different, and in particular in this country, they value being thin.
And also your managers would be punished if you didn't make any progress, which could cause a lot of mental stress.
And imagine you're a manager at a job, and rather than helping the staff, the workers be the best workers they can be, you're focused primarily on, are they eating in a calorie deficit? Are they doing cardio? And you might be thinking, well, yeah.
It's hard to say how much this tax is. He hasn't mentioned it could be a negligible amount. So it could just be something that's instituted to put more cultural pressure on the business to create a good health environment. Businesses tend to only respond to things that directly affect their cash flow. So if it's a negligible amount and the businesses might really not care about it too much, but the employees might care about it enough just because they don't want to be part of the out group, if you will.
Yeah, it definitely could be the work culture there. And there's definitely a different value on being thin. Like the video said, if only 4% of people are overweight in Japan, contrast that with 70+% in growing in the United States, just two very different cultures.
Yeah.
And what's acceptable and what's not.
It's a good thing that Gillett Health is not in Japan, given our winter bulking regimen. Definitely getting close to that 34-inch cutoff.
Good, they should be encouraging them. But why is it their job? Why isn't it the parents of the kids at school? And if anything, why isn't it not just on that person? Why are we passing the blame, passing the buck? Oh, you're overweight, we're going to punish your boss. Oh, you're not doing well, it's the teacher's fault. It's the parents. Why can't it be on the person that's not doing what they're supposed to do?
And the goal of this policy was to reduce the obesity rate by 25%. And as of today, the country's nationwide obesity rate is only 4%, making this policy a huge success.
And so this country, which I'm going to spoil it right now, it's in fact Japan, they have the lowest obesity rate in the world. And so did this law actually work? Well, based on this, I would say yes. But at what cost? And do we want to copy them? Do we want to do the same? Do you agree with this? Knowing that it could work, does that mean that we should implement it? Or could there be something different? Is there not a better way of going about getting the...
Yeah, we should definitely not have this law. But we should have an emphasis on healthy body composition rather than waist size. And we've mentioned this in previous podcasts, although this is not a podcast, I guess. But something like a DEXA scan is a much better marker of overall health. What a waist size is trying to get at is if you have that, the android obesity or the abdominal adiposity.
Apple shape.
Yeah, apple shape. VAT is one of the main measures for that. That's your visceral adipose tissue. And in general, you want to have less than 1 pound unless you're Harvard that says the average is 10 pounds.
Yeah, 10% of your body fat is visceral per Harvard. Clearly that's not accurate. And I think correcting for height is something that's easily done. I believe there's a height to waist ratio that you don't want to exceed. Maybe I think it's 1 to 2, something like that. That's used in obesity medicine as kind of a budget way to look at abdominal adiposity.
Yep.
So certainly you're not looking at someone who's quite tall like yourself and saying, hey, your waist isn't 28 inches. What the heck? Because some people have genetically wider waists, narrower waists. And I think Greg understands this coming from a bodybuilding background. Waist size is a big fixture there.
Yep. Waist size is a big fixture in open bodybuilding.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine the earnings calls from companies? No. Let's say we did put this law into effect, right? You're talking about you had this much net profit, this percent of year-over-year growth, you had this new revenue stream, and the average waist of your employees is this. And then the stock just tanks because they know that that company is going to get taxed into oblivion because all these engineers have a waist that's over 34 inches. It would be entertaining.
It would be.
Maybe they should make it a TV show, not a law.
That sounds like a better idea. Businesses can volunteer, and then depending on how they do, they can get whatever reality TV shows give these days.
Yeah.
A surprise marriage or something.
Then forcing companies, employers, bosses to measure the waist size of their employees, and then forcing these people to perhaps lose the weight, or else they're going to have an extra tax. You have to go to health and fitness classes provided by the employer. Do you really think that's going to make a difference? Oh, I have five employees that are overweight, and so I have to now pay $100 an hour for all of them to go attend some fitness class. And do you think that's going to work? Of course not. Do you really think you can out-exercise a bad diet? Do you really think that attending some fitness class is going to ensure that they're going to lose weight? Absolutely.
We've actually talked about this topic many times before. Exercise does not help with weight loss, but it very well might help with losing inches from your waist if you're measuring peri-umbilical distance. And it is protective against a lot of the downsides of carrying a high body weight. So individuals who are obese or have a higher class, previously known as morbid obesity, they are certainly much healthier if they exercise. So if your goal is health, which presumably the goal of this program is, then that is an ideal intervention.
Yeah, I mean, to say, okay, your BMI hasn't come down, but you got your 10,000 steps per day. And there are some aspects of this with, usually it's health insurance carriers where they're looking at, do these healthy behaviors and save money rather than penalizing people. Although I guess you could say it's a penalty for people who aren't participating in the healthy behaviors.
Yep. So the takeaway from people listening is not that you shouldn't exercise because this obesity medicine doctor said it does not help you lose weight. The goal here is to lose body fat for individuals who have too much body fat. And exercise does help you do that. And it helps you it helps reset a set point. Again, everybody needs a movement pastime to last a lifetime. That's what you find in common with people that lose weight. The 2 to 5% of people that lose weight and do keep it off, almost all of them have that in common.
Yeah. And unless you are a professional athlete or going to the Olympics, you probably cannot outrun your bad diet. So I totally agree with what Greg says here. And for those people who are elite athletes, you can't keep eating that way after you retire.
Yep, that is a good summary.
Oh, you go to a fitness class, you're lifting weights. What do? Burn 300 calories in an hour. Perhaps you do some more advanced cardio. Burn 400 or 500 calories. That is not enough. You can get home and eat a cheeseburger and eat more than 500 calories. And so it is not going to work. To lose the weight, you have to want it. You have to educate people, inform them how to do it, and they have to then want it. And so in 2008, Japan introduced the Metabolo. Sounds like a metabolism law. All men and women aged 40 to 74 have to have their waist measured by their employer on an annual basis. Anyone who breached these figures was required to attend weight loss classes funded by the employer's health insurance company. So think of it, this only applies to people between the ages of 40 and 74. And so if you're 39, you can be as fat as you want. Turn 40, nope, it's all over from there. If you show up to a job interview, 30 different people, and they see that you're on the cusp, you're a little bit overweight, perhaps not quite above the limit. Do you really think they're going to consider you for that job when they have 29 other candidates who are not obese? And remember, only 4% of the country is actually overweight. In comparison, in the United States, 69%. And in case you're wondering, 36% are obese. And so when I say that somebody is overweight, I'm clearly speaking about most people. On average, the majority of people are overweight. And so if I say in a video, I guess a person's overweight, I'm actually playing the odds. The odds are you watching this at home, you're overweight. Some of you, about 1/3, are probably obese. And it wasn't always like this, but it has been getting worse year after year. People are doing far less exercise, they're eating worse, and they're scrolling on their
We've talked about this quite a bit as well. The Healthy People 2030 goals, which are very reasonable. And there are definitely public health programs that are being initiated to help with this problem. But as with anything in medicine, this is just a phenomenon of each individual family unit or tight-knit social unit, if you will. People tend to get in the same habits, and the lifestyle changes are driving this. In general, it is not, it's the 6 pillars or 7 pillars of health. It's not that, they're missing something or there's something in the environment that's causing this, or genetic switches are switched on by microchips or whatnot. It's the 6 pillars.
They're watching TV, sitting at home. They're not going out anymore. It was even worse during that time period when you couldn't get out of your house. They shut the gyms down as if that made sense. So yeah, let's try to encourage people to be healthy, but let's prevent them from going to the gym.
A number of patients when other people were putting on their COVID 30 pounds. I think that was about the average for the 2020 to 2022 timeframe. That actually took that time to get on a regular exercise regimen. They had more time because they were working remotely, and they actually significantly improved their health. And maybe they lost to COVID-30.
Exercise. And so I don't know the perfect solution, but what I do know is that with education and knowledge comes power. If you inform people how to lose weight and get in shape, and you start this at a young age, it will change the mindset, the culture of our nation. As it is right now, people don't give a shit. I'm sorry, they do not. We promote binge eating. We say it's cool, go to a buffet, all you can eat. We celebrate every Friday. It's somebody's birthday cake. Eat more, celebrate with food. Oh, you did great, here's a reward, here's more candies. Rather than having the mindset that exercise is cool and that we can have fun by being active, that is not what we promote. And so obviously, my cookbooks, my Circle diet book, how to lose weight, keep it off.
The solution to getting rid of Japan's Metabo Law, the anabolic cookbook.
A cookbook for more food, to celebrate food more. I think what he's trying to get at here is that it is not that you should avoid food and become anorexic and become a exercise anorexic, which is where you exercise so much so that you can binge and whatnot. And that's the primary reason why you exercise. And to keep your body weight as low as possible. Darn the health consequences, but that you should make good choices. So maybe for a birthday, when you're making a cake, make a protein brownie instead, or instead of serving ice cream, make something with a Ninja Creamy, like we have been so often lately. That way you can still be a food enthusiast, as I am, and maintain your good health.
Yeah, I think those are all perfectly reasonable options. Don't know that there'll be much here at the end. We'll see what he has to say.
Your life. Being able to eat lower calorie foods while keeping yourself full. Even Sam Zulik said this in his last video. If you want to lose weight, you need to eat lower calorie portions that keep you full. If you have two bowl options, one has a lot of calories, one has a little bit of calories. If you eat the one with less calories and it makes you full, you're going to have an easier time to lose weight. It really is that simple. That is why the cookbook works so well.
Except that it's not that simple. The physics is that simple, but the habit change is not that simple. Most people know that there are laws of thermodynamics, and calories in must equal calories out. However, a lot of individuals that try to eat these 200, 300 calorie breakfasts and lunch, what we see in clinical practice is that very commonly the last 3 or 4 hours of the day, they are so hungry, they're hangry, they're irritable, they're orexigenic. Again, thinking about the anorexigenic center of the hypothalamus versus the orexigenic center, they're hungry, they're angry, and they're awake. And they eat partly because it helps them go to sleep. They feel tired after they eat. And also, they're more likely to binge after maybe the kids are in bed. This is when I do like to make my Ninja Creamy. And that helps me stave off some of the desire to do late night snacking or just overeat for dinner. But the moral of the story here is especially if you're training, don't try to consume, a very low percentage of your calories if it's going to put you at risk of binging later. Yes, some people have great luck with intermittent fasting and time restricted feeding, but know what category you're in. Just because somebody else has success with time restricted feeding doesn't mean it's a good option for you if you're going to not be able to learn to enjoy adhering to it.
Yeah, and vice versa. If you're someone who eats your 2 meals a day and you've stayed in great shape this way, they've actually done some studies with habitual breakfast skippers, and they just say, hey, just start eating breakfast, and those people start gaining weight. So It is very individual. And sort of these are people that had always been skipping breakfast, and then now the net result is they're just getting in more calories, and of course they gain weight. So it doesn't seem like that offset their normal calorie intake. But totally agree. I think the window, like I would say at least 2/3 of patients I talk to, I say, hey, what's your problem meal or problem time of day? It's not breakfast. Sometimes it's snacking or lunch at the office, that sort of thing. But most of the time they say, it's dinner or after dinner. I just can't stop eating.
Yeah. And that's a good example. We said the individualized word again. Because at the end of the day, there's strategies that can help everyone. That's part of why the false dichotomy of it's either calories in, calories out, or I suppose it's not your fault, health at any body composition. But that's why that dichotomy is so polarizing, and people like to look at memes from various influencers. And Greg does give a lot of tips, and he does have a lot of great recipes. Again, I've noted many times on podcasts that I lost quite a bit of weight during residency, and some of the recipes that I followed was Greg's protein ice cream. Now that Ninja has a creamy, it's even better than the old school way that you made it in the Ninja. But taking those tips away is what you should concentrate on. Yes, calories in equals calories out, but honestly, we shouldn't even concentrate on that. Instead, we can look at foods of low caloric density, for the right person tracking calories, and what tools you can learn to learn those habits.
Yeah, I think that's really reasonable. The framework I tend to start with is, hey, are you someone who just wants to very meticulously track things and then do the same things day in and day out? Or do you want to have sort of a slightly looser set of rules and, pick the foods that you can eat the most of and have the least calories? Generally, those are going to be higher in nutritional value as well. So there's multiple ways to do it.